Hello my friend and welcome to my channel Faisal Azib. I hope that you are well. So we learned all about the for loop and even created a loop inside the loop. But there is another type of a loop in JavaScript and that's the while loop. So let's explore that one now. And to understand how the while loop works and the difference between the for and the while loop, let's actually go back to our first for loop in video and get back the code of this weightlifting exercise. So let's take it. Where is it? Where is it? This one. Okay, I will just put 10 here. Okay. Now let's now do the same thing with a while loop. So implementing the same with a while loop, we still need the same component. So we still need a counter so that we can then actually print the current value to the console. We still need a condition so that we know when to stop and when we still need to increase the counter somehow. Now in the while loop it works a bit differently because for the while loop we can only specify a condition. So like this. So while and just a condition. So rep 10. Okay? Is the only thing that we can specify here. So that's gonna be exactly the same as the condition in the for loop. So we want to keep the loop running while repetition is less or equal to 10. And that's actually why this loop is called while. So again, it is called the while loop because it will run while this condition is true. Alright. But now we need to kind of manually, so more explicitly define the other two components of the while loop. So the repetition and the increasing of the counter. So we need to do that basically outside. So we start at the beginning with rep equal 1. Okay? Then we have the condition. Then let's put the code that we want to execute. This one, we just copy paste inside the block of the while loop. And then at the end of the iteration here, we will then increase the counter. And so let's just do that. So at the end of the iteration is basically the end of this code block. And so let's do that here, rep ++. And that's it. And so now we should get the exact same result twice. Once coming from this for loop and once coming from this while loop. So let's see. Good. So the second set here is coming from the while loop. And so this all means that the while loop is more versatile than the for loop, which means that it can be used in a larger variety of situations. And that's because it does not really need a counter. So you put the counter here because we need it for the specific use case. But all the while loop really needs is the condition which needs to stay true for it to keep running. And that condition can be any condition. It doesn't have to be related to any counter at all. And sometimes that's exactly what we need to solve a certain problem. So a problem without any counter, so without a number that is increasing. And so let's create such an example here. So I will start by taking off this for loop. We will no longer need that one, and now we will do simple example that does not depend on a counter, but instead it will depend on a random variable. Okay, So what we are gonna do is to basically roll a dice and then keep rolling the dice until we roll a 6. And then when we roll a 6, we stop. So essentially, we will want to keep running the loop while the rolled dice is different from 6. And so in this case, we do actually not know beforehand how many times the loop should run. And so we don't need a counter variable, and that's exactly the use case of a while loop. So let's start to create a variable that get the random number. So let dice equal, and so the roll of a dice is a number between 1 and 6. The way that we implement this does not matter at this point, okay? So we will learn more about random numbers at a later point. And so for now, basically type what I am writing here. So we are using Math.random function. Okay? And this will create a number between 0 and 1. Then we multiply that by 6. But it's gonna be a decimal number. Let me just show you this in the console. What we can get here. Console.log dice and see the result. You see? So you see it's decimal number, and so now we need to get right all of this part here. Okay, decimal part. And so that we do using Math.trunc. Okay, all of this value. And so this will give us a number between 0 and 5, and then we added 1 to get 1 to 6. Okay, let's see. Good, we have 6 directly here. But if I reload, as you can see, 3. It's different, 1. But what matters here is that we, as we load the page, we get a random number here that is different every time. And so it will be different for you, of course. So different from what you see in the video as you keep reloading your own page. Okay? And so now, let's do what I explained earlier. So again, we want to keep running the loop until we roll a 6. So until this dice variable here holds the value of 6. And so the condition of the loop is now gonna be while dice is different from 6. Okay? And so as soon as the value is 6, it will stop. And let's log the value to the console here. So console.log backsticks you rolled the bird dice. And so let's get rid of this console from here very quick. But keep in mind that actually right now we are only creating one dice value. So at this point a loop doesn't make a lot of sense. And so actually let's keep working on this before we test it. So again, we are only creating one random number between 1 and 6 here, right? And if that's different than 6, this loop will run. But right now, the loop would then run forever, which I am not going to show you here. No, because that would crash the browser. So, this will be called an infinite loop, and we don't want that. So what we will do is to keep creating a new dice value, and so we are going to reassign this value at the end of each iteration. So here, I will just do this. And so now we are ready to test the result here. So let's check. Wow, you see, we got a lot of dice rolls here. Let me actually just comment the console log about this one. Okay, and I load. And so of course your result will be different from mine, because you are using different random numbers. Okay, but anyway, let's analyze what happened here. So we start with some random dice number, and then here we check if that dice is different from 6. And apparently it was different, and so we entered the loop, which then logged you rolled the 3. Okay, so my random number was first a 3. Then in the next line you create a new random number and then loop run again. So again this condition was tested. So is the dice different from 6? And apparently it was. And so we enter into the loop again, and we have always a number 3. As you can see, I have 2 here. It means I have second 3. And so I printed you rolled a 3. And the next dice was a 4. And the next one was 2. Etc. etc. But apparently the next dice was here was 6 after the 5. So at the end of the iteration here, this dice value was 6, and so then in the next iteration dice was actually equal to 6, and so then the condition is no longer true and the loop stopped. And let me actually write one more line of code here in which we can say if dice is equal to 6. Okay, so console.log loop is about to end. Okay, and so this way we can know when the 6 happened. And so the very first thing that should ever happen here in this output is this, right? Because then when the dice was 6, the next iteration will no longer run. So let's check that. What is that? Apparently after the second 4 after it stops. So let's run again. Here the first one, and here after some dice. So we get here 1, but not success, and then loop is about the end, as you can see. And so the dice was 6, and so this condition was true. And so we saw this log to the console, and then in the next iteration again, 6 is equal to 6, and so the loop finished. So we can try again to reload more and more, and you see it works as I do now. And maybe we got situation where the first dice ever was 6. I have do it, as you can see, I have got it. And so the loop never even started, and this was the situation I was waiting for here. So one dice is 6 right away in the beginning, then of course this loop will have exactly 0 iteration. It will never start, okay? And so the conclusion of this is that the while loop does really not have to depend on any counter variable. So whenever you do need a loop without a counter, you can reach for the while loop. So basically, that happens whenever you do not know beforehand how many iterations the loop will have. So in that situation, the while loop is the right tool for the job. And that's exactly what we had here. So we had no way of knowing how many times we would roll a dice that's different from 6. Now, on the other hand, when we do know how many times the loop we ran, that means that we are going to actually need a counter. For example, when we want to loop over an array, we already know how many elements that array has. And so, we know how many iterations we will need. And therefore, the for loop is usually the right choice to loop over an array. Alright. And with this, we kind of finished the JavaScript fundamental. So, we have finished the 2 two sections about JavaScript fundamentals, and we start with new ones about developer skills and editor setting in next one, inshallah. So just practice, 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 and each time we will increase the level in JavaScript step by step. Take care of us, brothers and sisters. I tell you goodbye. Wassalamu alaikum wa barakatuh.